Judges 13. The Israelites sinned against the Lord again, and he let the Philistines rule them for 40 years. At that time, there were a man named Moha from the town of Zor. He was a member of the tribe of Dan. His wife had never been able to have children. The Lord's angel appeared to her and said, "You have never been able to have a children, but you will soon be pregnant and have a son. Take care, do not drink any wine or beer or eat any forbidden food. And after your son is born, you never must be cutting his hair, because from the day of the birth he will dedicate to God as Nazareth. He will begin the work of rescuing Israelites from the Philippines." Then the woman went and said to her husband, "A man of God came to me and he looked as frightening as the angel of God. I didn't ask him where he came from, and he didn't tell me his name, but he didn't tell me what I would become pregnant and have a son. He told me not to drink any wine or beer or eat any forbidden food, because the boy is to be dedicated to God as Nazareth as long as he lives." Then Moha prayed to God, "Please, God, let the man of God that you sent come back and tell us what we must do with the boy when he is born." God did what Moha asked, and he angel came back to the woman while she was sitting in the fields. Her husband Moha was not with her, so she ran at once and said to him, "Look, the man who God who came to me the other day has appeared me again." Moha got up and followed his wife. He went to the man and asked, "Are you the man who was talking to my wife?" Said, "Yes," he answered. Then Moha asked, "When your words came true, what must we do with the baby boy? What kind of life must we lead him?" The Lord's angel answered, "Your wife must be sure to do everything that I have told her. She must not eat anything that comes from grapevine. She must not drink wine or beer or eat any forbidden food. She must do everything that I have told her." Moha did not know what if the Lord's angel, so he said to him, "Please don't go yet. Let us cook a young goat for you." But the angel said, "If I stay, I will not eat your food. But if you want to prepare it, burn as offering to the Lord." Moha replied, Let us your name, so that we can honor you when your words come true." The angel said, "Why do you want to know my name? It is a name of wonder." So Moha took a young goat and some grains and offered them on the rock altar to the Lord who worked wonders. While the flames were going up from the altar, Moha and his wife saw the Lord's angel up go up towards heavens in the flames. Moha realized that the man had been the Lord's angel, and he and his wife grew themselves face downwards on the ground. They never saw the angel of God again. Moha asked his wife, "We are sure to die because we have never seen God." But his wife answered, "If Lord had wanted to kill us, he could not have accepted our offering. So he would not have shown us all this or told us such things now." The woman gave birth to a son and named him Samson. The child grew up, the Lord blessed him, and the Lord's power began to strengthen him while he was between Zorah and Eshtaol in the camp of Dan. Judges 14. One day Samson went down to Timnah, where he noticed a certain Philistine girl. He went back home and said to his father and mother, "There's a Philistine girl down at Timnah who has caught my attention. Get her for me, I want to marry her." But his father and mother asked him, "Why do you have to go to those hithen Philistines to get a wife? Can't you find a girl in your own clan among all your people?" But Samson said to his father, "She is the one I like. I want to get her for me. I like her. His parents did not know that it was the Lord who was leading Samson to do this. For the Lord was looking for a chance to fight the Philistines. This time, the Philistines were ruling Israel. So Samson went down to Timnah with his father and mother. As they were going through the vineyard, he heard a young lion roaring. Suddenly, the power of the Lord made Samson strong, and he tore the lion apart with his bare hands, as if it were a young goat. But he did not tell his parents what he had done. Then he went and talked to the girl, and he liked her. A few days later, Samson went back to marry her. On the day he has left the road to look at the lion he had killed, and he was surprised to see a swarm of bees and some honeys inside the dead body. He swapped the honey out into his hands and ate it as he walked along. Then he went to his father and mother and gave them some. They ate it, but Samson did not tell them that he had taken the honey from the dead body of the lion. His father went to the girl's house, and Samson gave a banquet there. This was a custom among the young men. When the Philistines saw, they sent 30 young men to stay with him. Samson said to them, "Let me ask you a riddle. I will bet each one of you a piece of fine linen and charge a fine clothes that you can tell me its meaning before the 7 days of the feast and over." "Tell your riddle," they said. "Let's hear it," he said. "Out of the eater and came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet." 3 days later, they had still solved the riddle. On the fourth day, they said to Samson's wife, "Trick your brother into telling us what the riddle means. If you don't tell us, we will set fire on your father's house and burn you with it." Then two invited and us on that you could rob us. They did not you. So Samson's wife went to him in tears and said, "You don't love me, you just hate me. You are just asking my friends a riddle and not telling me what it means." He said, "Look, I haven't even told my father and mother. Why should I tell you?" She cried about it for the whole 7 days of the feast. But on the seventh day she told her what the riddle meant, for she nagged him about it so much. Then she told to the Philistines. So on the seventh day, before Samson went into the bedroom, the men of the city said to him, "What could be sweeter than honey? That could be stronger than a lion?" Samson replied, "If you hadn't been plowing with my cow, you wouldn't have the answer now." Suddenly, the power of the Lord made him strong, and he went down to Ascalon, where he killed 30 men, striped them, and gave their fine clothes to the men who had solved this riddle. After that, he went back home, fusing about what happened, and his wife was given to a man that had been best man at the wedding. Judges 15. Sometimes later, Samson went to his wife's house during the wheat harvest and took her a young goat. He said to her father, "I want to go to my wife's room." But he couldn't let him in. He said to Samson, "Because I really thought that you hated her, so I gave her your friend. But her younger sister is prettier anyway. You can have her." Samson said, "This way I'm not going to be responsible for what I do to the Philistines." So he sent and caught 300 fox, two by two. He tied their tails together and put torch in their knots. Then he fixed fire to the torch and turned the foxes loose in the Philistine corn fields. In this way, he burned not only the corn that was had been harvested, but also the corn that was still in the field, and the olive orchards as well. When the Philistine asked who had done this, they learned that Samson had done it because his father-in-law, a man from Timnah, gave Samson's wife to a friend of Samson. So the Philistine went and burned the woman to death and burned her down her father's house. Samson told them, So this is how you act. I swear that I won't stop until I pay you back. He attacked them and killed many of them. Then he went and stayed in the cave in the elf at Etham. The Philistines came down and camped in Judah and attacked the town of Lee. The man of Judah asked him, "Why are you attacking us?" They said, "We have to take Samson prisoner and treat him as he treated us." So 3,000 men of Judah went to the cave of Leaf and Etham, and he said to Samson, "Don't you know that the Philistines are our rulers? You have done this to us." He answered, "I did not I did not them just what they did to me. They said, 'We have come here to tie you up, then we have handed over you to them." Samson said to them in words that, "You won't kill him me yourself." "All right," they said, "we all are going to tie you up and hand you over them." He would not kill you. So he tied him up with two ropes and brought him back with the cliff. When he got to Lehi, the Philistines came running towards him, shouting at him. Suddenly, the power of the God made him strong, and he broke the ropes around his arm and hands as if it were burnt thread. Then he found the jawbone in the donkey that had recently died. He bent down and picked it up and killed 1,000 men with it. So Samson with the jawbone of a donkey. I killed 1,000 of men with the jawbone of a donkey. I peeled them up in peels. After that, he threw the jawbones away. The place where this happened was named Ramath Lahi. Then Samson became very thirsty. So he asked to the Lord and said, "You gave me this great victory. Now I am going to die of thirst and to be captured by this heathen Philistine." Then God opened a hole place in the ground there, Lahi, and water came out of it. Samson drank it and began to feel much better. So the spring has named Haroi. It is still there at Lahi. Samson led Israel for 20 years while Philistines ruled the lands.
The book of Judges, chapter 16. One day Samson went to Gaza, where he saw a prostitute. He went in to spend the night with her. The people of Gaza were told, "Samson is here." So they surrounded the place and lay in wait for him all night at the city gate. They made no move during the night, saying, "At dawn we will kill him." But Samson lay there only until the middle of the night. Then he got up and took hold of the doors of the city gate, together with the two posts, and tore them loose, bar and all. He lifted them to his shoulders and carried them to the top of the hill that faces Hebron. Some time later, he fell in love with a woman in the valley of Sorek whose name was Delilah. The rulers of the Philistines went to her and said, "See if you can lure him into showing you the secret of his great strength and how we can overpower him, so we may tie him up and subdue him. Each one of us will give you 1,100 shekels of silver." So Delilah said to Samson, "Tell me the secret of your great strength and how we can be tied up and subdued." Samson answered her, "If anyone ties me with 7 fresh bowstrings that have not been dried, I will become as weak as any other man." Then the rulers of the Philistines brought her 7 fresh bowstrings that had not been dried, and she tied him with them. With men hidden in the room, she called to him, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." But he snapped the bowstrings as easily as a piece of string snaps when it comes close to a flame. So the secret of his strength was not discovered. Then Delilah said to Samson, "You have made a fool of me. You lied to me. Come now, tell me how you can be tied." He said, "If anyone ties me securely with new ropes that have never been used, I'll become as weak as any other man." So Delilah took new ropes and tied him with them. Then, with men hidden in the room, she called to him, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." But he snapped the ropes of his arms as if they were threads. Delilah then said to Samson, "All this time you have been making a fool of me and lying to me. Tell me how you can be tied." He replied, "If you weave the 7 braids of my head into the fabric on the loom and tighten it with the pin, I'll become as weak as any other man." So while he was sleeping, Delilah took the 7 braids of his head, wove them into the fabric, and tightened it with the pin. Again she called him, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. He awoke from his sleep and pulled up the pin and the loom with the fabric. Then she said to him, How can you say, I love you, when you won't confide in me? This is the third time you have made a fool of me and haven't told me the secret of your great strength. With such nagging, she prodded him day after day until he was sick to death of it. So he told her everything. No razor has ever been used on my head, he said, because I have been a Nazarite dedicated to God from my mother's womb. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me, and I would become as weak as any other man. When Delilah saw that he had told her everything, she went word to the rulers of the Philistines. Come back once more. He has told me everything. So the rulers of Philistine returned with the silver in their hands after putting him into sleep on her lap. She called for someone to shave off the 7 braids of his hair, and so began to subdue him, and his strength left him. Then she called, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. He awoke from his sleep and thought, I will go out as before and shake myself free. But he did not know that the Lord had left him. Then the Philistines seized him, gouged out his eyes, and took him down to Gaza. Binding him with bronze shackles, they set him to grinding grain in the prison. But the hair on his head began to grow again after it had been shaved. Now the rulers of the Philistines assembled to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon their god and to celebrate, saying, Our God has delivered Samson, our enemy, into our hands. When the people saw him, they praised their God, saying, Our God has delivered our enemy into our hands, the one who laid waste our land and multiplied our slain. While they were in high spirits, they shouted, Bring out Samson to entertain us. So they called Samson out of the prison, and he performed for them. When they stood him among the pillars, Samson said to the servant who held his hand, Put me where I can feel the pillars that support the temple, so that I may lean against them. Now the temple was crowded with men and women. All the rulers of the Philistines were there, and on the roof were about 3,000 men and women watching Samson perform. The Samson prayed to the Lord, Sovereign Lord, remember me, please. God, strengthen me just once more, and let me with one blow get revenge on the Philistines for my 2 eyes. The Samson reached toward the 2 central pillars on which the temple stood, bracing himself against them, his right hand on the one and his left hand on the other. Samson said, Let me die with the Philistines. Then he pushed with all his might, and down came the temple on the rulers and all the people in it. Thus he killed many more when he died than while he lived. Then his brothers and his father's whole family went down to get him. They brought him back and buried him between Zorah and Estaol in the tomb of Manoah, his father. He had led Israel 20 years.